Okay, so we're good. We're recording. And Katie, if you want to get started and just introduce yourself and give us a little overview.
Awesome. Yeah, my name is Katie. I graduated from Cal in 2019. I was a public health major with an emphasis in health policy and management. And now I'm a senior legal consultant at CloudMed. I also do training and recruiting at CloudMed as well. At Cal, I did peer health exchange. I did FSI internship shadowing a cardiologist. I did research at the School of Public Health, and then I did an HSI internship at a genetics nonprofit.
Great, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Maddie. I graduated as the class of 2020, but actually walked yesterday, which was fun. And I graduated with a public health major and a minor in Spanish language and literature. And I'm currently a experienced consultant at CloudMed and have been working on a range of different projects there and have also been a bit involved with recruiting at CloudMed too, in like the virtual setting, which has been very interesting. And then during my undergraduate time at Berkeley, I was also involved with the HSI internship program, as well as the Cal Undergraduate Public Health Coalition. And I also did research with the School of Public Health.
Great, thanks. David?
Yes, hi, very nice to speak with you all. I apologize, I'm driving right now, so I'm going to spare you the shot of me from wearing my seatbelt and being behind the wheel. But I'm a proud Cal alum. I'm a partner at Simon Kucher and Partners. I graduated from Cal in 1998, which would make me, I guess, the senior alum here today. I'm happy to talk to you about what that's been like. It's, I love my time at Cal. I think it's really prepared me for a long career in consulting. Almost all of that career in healthcare. So I can speak to, our healthcare, what healthcare consulting means to me. Our firm focuses on really what we call top line topics. So sales, marketing, pricing, consulting work for healthcare technology companies and as well as life science companies. So that's the full gamut from telemedicine, telehealth, innovative therapeutics, digital therapeutics, consumer genomics, and the like, in addition to biopharmaceuticals and medical devices and such. So very nice to speak with you all today.
Thank you. How about if we start next? That was a little bit of an overview of what you did at Cal. Can you talk a little bit about how you came to decide on healthcare consulting, and then maybe a little bit about what a day in your life is like, the skills you used and how you prepared yourself, like while you're at Cal or on your path to this role, like the skills that you kind of acquired along the way and really need to be successful. Just go in the same order again to keep it clear. Okay.
Yeah, so when I graduated from Cal, I didn't really know what I wanted to do yet. I knew that I wanted to do something in healthcare, but wasn't sure if that was more of a clinical career or something in policy and management. So when I was looking for jobs, I had applied to a very wide range of things, from anything from nonprofits to like healthcare consulting. So I ended up deciding to go with healthcare consulting just because I thought it gave you a very broad range of experience. And especially at CloudMed gives you a very broad overview of the healthcare system in general. So I really liked that. It gave me a little bit more of an opportunity to explore the healthcare field and decide what I wanted to do in the future. And I think that has been really helpful for deciding what I want to do as a long-term career. And I'm applying to law school this fall. So that's been really great. At Cal, kind of to get me to this path, I tried a very broad range of activities as well. So I did everything from peer health exchange, which is like teaching health classes to high schoolers, to research, clinical experience, things like that. So just having that very broad range of experience has helped me really narrow down my actual career path that I want to do in the future. So yeah.
And then what do you do kind of day to day? What does day to day look like for you?
Yeah, so I work at CloudMed with Maddie. I am on the legal consulting side of things. So CloudMed works for hospitals to kind of look at their back-end financials and recover any revenue that they may have missed while they're billing insurance companies. So I look on the legal side when a hospital is potentially going to pursue a lawsuit against an insurance company. And so my day-to-day is looking at data to see whether or not that data supports a lawsuit and whether that can go forward in court. And then once a hospital has decided to pursue a lawsuit, I look at all the accounts and the data that they are potentially pursuing for damages, and am able to analyze and summarize that into a case.
Very cool. Thank you. Maddie?
Yeah, so like Katie, I had a pretty diverse background before getting into healthcare consulting, just with the experiences I had in undergrad, which I think actually really helped me to kind of step into this role, just having like more of a breadth of, I don't know, knowledge in different like experiences in areas that I started out with. It was kind of interesting because most of my prior experiences to getting into the consulting industry were all within the nonprofit sector or research based, which is very different from the private healthcare sector that I'm in now. But it gave me a much better understanding of the healthcare system and all of the different facets of it. And also studying public health is such a broad field. And so I went into school, honestly, not really knowing what even public health was and what I could do with it. And so over the 4 years at Berkeley, I really just tried to get experience in any topics that I really found interesting, and just kind of get a better sense of where I could see myself in the future, and what career path. And so it definitely changed pretty drastically like throughout the past 4 years. But I started out kind of freshman year doing like really broad public health work and just getting a better sense of the field. And then I kind of realized I really enjoyed healthcare policy and also more so like immigration. And so I was seeking opportunities around that, kind of freshman and sophomore year. And that's kind of where I focused my efforts when I was like looking for summer internships, or opportunities during the semesters at school too, just to see if there were opportunities that aligned with those interests and kind of be able to narrow down the scope of kind of public health in general. And then when I actually went abroad my junior year, I was hoping to really get experience working abroad also while simultaneously like studying in a different country. And Spanish has always been an important part of my life too, growing up in Mexico. So trying to just mesh everything together was something I definitely focused on. So abroad, I was able to start kind of like my public health research side of things. And I became really interested in nutrition, which is another part of public health, but kind of looking at diet related diseases. And so kind of was able to intertwine my interest in healthcare policy and then looking at nutrition policy in a different country. And so kind of, again, narrowing it down a little more with new experiences. And then senior year, I tried to really take everything I learned in the past 3 years and those different experiences and see if I could apply anything to a more local experience in Berkeley. And so I did research with a public health professor, Professor Madsen, and we're looking at sugar sweetened tax beverage research in basically San Francisco County for the most part, and kind of analyzing trends of consumption over the past 4 years due to this this nutrition policy. And so again, just kind of refined my interest in public health throughout the years. And I think gaining all of that, I wouldn't say miscellaneous, but just kind of all over the place experience helped me when I was like going into senior year and starting my job search. Cause like Katie, I had no idea exactly what I wanted to go into. And I'm sure that's pretty clear from the very different fields I kind of saw throughout my time at Berkeley. But like Katie, I was really interested in Cloud Med just because I thought it would really help with building a more technical skill set while also working in a more corporate area of healthcare, which I'd never really had exposure to. So again, I think it has really just increased my like breadth of knowledge of the industry and also really helped me gain those technical skills that you don't get as much exposure to in college, I would say, unless they're like things you seek out, I think. So yeah, that's a long-winded answer, but just going to show that like I think a really diverse background has helped me kind of further narrow down. And obviously it's my first year out of undergrad, so a lot to learn still, but that has been really helpful in kind of getting to where I am today.
Yeah, and what does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so mine's a teeny bit different from Katie just because I'm not on the legal side of things, but essentially we work on project teams based on different hospital systems around the country. And every 6 to 7 months, you do project rotations. And so you hop onto a new team after that first 7 months and you work in a different hospital system. And so then it gives you exposure to a new team and people and different risk areas, we call them, which are areas where we try to find or recover revenue for our clients, which are the hospital systems. And so I just rotated onto a new project a couple of weeks ago, and our hospital system is based in Texas. And so now in the new kind of role that I've entered as an experienced consultant, you focus more on training newer hires. And so my team is 3 people, and I work closely with a new hire on the team. So kind of training them on the day-to-day work that we do and on the projects that definitely transfer project to project, but look a little bit different based on the hospital system that you work with. And so a lot of training lately, which is fun and kind of confirms what you've learned over the past few months also. So, and then otherwise it's very research based. So a lot of our work each day goes into looking into different risk areas, which we call such as trauma cases. And for example, like a patient comes into the hospital for a trauma accident, and we see if the insurance payer didn't pay all of the billed charges essentially that they should have. And so if we find an issue with that, we're basically the liaison between the insurance company and the hospital and trying to recover that lost revenue for them. So it's primarily research around trying to identify where that money went.
Interesting. Thank you. David.
Super interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Maddie. I was a pre-med student at Cal and was actually a Latin language major, but a pre-med student. So I took all my science classes. I was preparing to go to medical school, and that was my plan after school. But I also felt the desire to kind of go work. I had substantial loans, so I wanted to work for a couple of years before I went. And when I went down to, I appreciate the good work that that is being done in career services. I sat down with my career counselor at the time, and she was like, okay, I said, I want a job. I'd like to, work for a couple of years to go to medical school. They said, great. What's your major? I'm a Latin major. Like, I've got nothing for you except there's these sales companies that say they'll train anybody. And there are these consulting firms who say that as long as you're like bright enough, they can make you into what they need. I said, sounds good. So I interviewed with Xerox at the time, and Kodak, they were both selling copiers, which sounded pretty good. They're like, you can make good money in sales. I said, all right, I'll try it. And then the other ones were consulting firms. So I ended up doing that, pursuing that path, and it was good. I, ended up working in consulting out of undergrad for a generalist firm. It wasn't healthcare specific, but I ended up doing some healthcare work while I was there. So that kind of piqued my interest. I went back to business school with the idea that I was going to go and do healthcare industry work. So go from the consulting side to the industry. I worked at Johnson & Johnson in marketing, product marketing for my summer internship. And after doing that, had a great experience, and wanted to come back and work full time for them in sales, because I felt like that was a super interesting, important part of the business. And after that, I came back to consulting after 5 years working in the industry, and the rest was super. Thank you. So I'm just picking up my daughter, and they were super helpful and strapped her into the car already. Honey, I'm just going to be on this phone call for the next 45 minutes. All good. So we are all set here. Now yes, I can. So what else? My day-to-day is probably a little different from everybody else's. I spend a lot of time with clients as a partner here. I'm really training the team. That's kind of my number one set of objectives now. Now that I'm, many years into my career, I've been a partner since I've been at the firm for 13 years, and really mostly geared to hiring, training. I'm talking to students at Berkeley who, like me, graduated from Berkeley and want to pursue a career in healthcare consulting. So that's the a little bit about my day to day. It's very much, my thought here is as a business, it's very much a profession that is an apprenticeship still. And so there's a lot to be learned by kind of watching, and a lot to kind of, continue to be, skills to be developed from working closely with teams. And so I think what Maddie had mentioned really resonates also with our firm, that there's a lot of seeing one and doing one and teaching one. And I think it's a very strong team dynamic. So it's one of the things that draws people in. Also very common to see folks that have different, different types of backgrounds come into it. People who are maybe still seeking a bit what they want to do with their life, which I think is totally natural and totally healthy, right? The average person in this life is going to have 7 different jobs. And so not knowing exactly what you want right out of school is totally okay. And being, I think, kind of embracing a mindset that you're going to have a bunch of different careers in your life, and it's just one step on a journey that may not have a direct linear path, hopefully gives everyone a little bit of peace of mind. Because a lot of folks would be like, I'm an engineer, this is what I do. I'm a doctor, I'm going to med school, this is what I do. I'm a lawyer, it's fine. But not most people's paths are not going to look like that. And there's so many different paths here. I think the most important skills that this group can bring are critical thinking skills, certainly any kind of leadership experience where you've had to kind of bring people together, chart a vision, execute against a plan. All of those things are useful experiences that I would say would prepare you well for a career in healthcare consulting. And I think a passion for helping people. I think that is maybe the thing that to me underpins so much of our work. We work primarily with healthcare technology companies. So, we share the passion of innovators and startup founders and folks like that who are trying to change the world, bring new things to the market. I think there's a great mission in that as well. I had done work on campus in public health. I had an American Heart Association research fellowship grant one summer and did that work in public health. Through that, I was able to see like a path beyond kind of just being a practicing physician to help people. And I think that also broadened my view that I think business has a huge role to play. You know, if you look back over time about the things that have really improved the standard of care or healthcare on a global basis, so many of them are healthcare technology related. So whether they're breakthrough pharmaceutical drugs or there are different types of technologies, life-saving tools that are now available, it's super exciting, and I think there's great.
Thank you. I'm gonna kind of build off of what you just shared, and that's a nice segue. I'm gonna ask one more question, then I'm gonna turn it over to everyone. David, you kind of touched on like skills that you'd look for and would be needed to be successful in this role. Katie, Maddie, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what did you find that you really needed to highlight when you were going through the search process? What helped you stand out as a candidate? What would your advice be if this is all sounding good to someone and they're thinking they want to move forward? What kind of what kind of skills, but then maybe even if you have suggestions for experiences, would you recommend to them?
Yeah, I think David touched on this a little bit, but echoing the critical thinking and problem solving skills as well as leadership. Those are two things that I always recommend that candidates put on their cover letters. And then the other thing that I would also say is communication, just being able to communicate effectively with both your peers and like partners, seniors, bosses, stuff like that, and knowing what kind of communication needs to go where is really important. So any kind of like leadership experiences, I would put that on there. Anything that shows that you have great quantitative or critical thinking skills, and that can be like a broad range of experiences, anything from research or even like a really hard math class you took will show that you have the appropriate critical thinking skills that you'll need in your day-to-day, especially at CloudMed.
Great. Maddie, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I echo everything that they both said. I think the biggest thing that has been helpful for me in this industry is an ability to work with teams, especially since at CloudMed, you are rotating so often and working with so many different people. I think having the ability to adapt to people's working styles and learn how to, again, like Katie said, communicate effectively with anyone you work with is a huge skill to have. And so if you're looking for opportunities in undergrad, I think being able to work with a team is a great place to start. And that might sound kind of broad, but I mean, for example, research is typically pretty individual at times, but it gives you some great technical skills. So there's like pros and cons to both. Whereas like working at a nonprofit, for example, I was constantly communicating with a manager and other like stakeholders in that industry, as well as our clients more directly, or the people that we were serving in the community. And so being able to really communicate in any job, even if it's research-based and you're talking to like your PI and be able to talk through different situations. I think that's definitely what's helped me the most this past year.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. I think I have more questions I can ask, but we have maybe 11 other people here. So I'll just turn it over to anyone who has questions. You can either feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or go ahead and put your question in the chat and then I can ask. Okay. One question came in. How would you recommend looking for healthcare consulting jobs? That's a great question.
Sorry. I looked a lot at LinkedIn. I also knew some people who had graduated beforehand, even just peripherally. I think a really great way to kind of get your foot in the door is to message people on LinkedIn that you know have a job that you'd maybe be interested in, and do informational interviews. That helps to not only get to know someone at the company who might be able to help you out, but also you'll just interview better and write a better cover letter if you know a little bit about the company. So if you can do some broad research on LinkedIn, and I think I also use the Career Center website as well. I can't remember what it's called now since I've been out for 2 years, but those are the two main places that I looked for jobs. And then once I found jobs that I would maybe be interested in, I contacted people at the company who I had even met once or twice in college or had been in a club with at some point. And I thought that that was really helpful.
Handshake is the name of our
Handshake.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Okay, Maddie, David, anything you'd add?
Yep, I was gonna say the exact. Oh, go ahead. Well, I was just gonna say the exact same thing about LinkedIn, and just if there's like a company that you think sounds interesting or have heard about, kind of seeing who works there and if there's any associate positions or one of like the more entry level positions right out of college, and seeing if someone has that in their job description and then reaching out. I think that's a great way to look for and kind of narrow down your search on LinkedIn, just because it can be overwhelming. And also Cal Career Fair is pretty much the reason I heard about most healthcare consulting groups. So I think you're doing it virtually, but I'm not quite sure. Yeah, so that is how I honestly heard about well, it was formerly called Triage, but Cloud Med, and also just through other people who graduated before me and who were public health majors like Katie, and just kind of seeing where they ended up too.
Great, thanks, David. Anything you want to add? And maybe even if you could talk about, is there a cycle to recruiting, and what happens if somebody kind of misses that cycle?
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, there is a cycle to recruiting, but there's never been a better time to be on cycle, because there's a great demand right now for consulting work. And I'm sure at CloudMed and other firms, we certainly see it. There's a huge influx in demand for help in healthcare. And what I would say, you certainly go to Handshake to find a list of firms. You go to LinkedIn, as they had mentioned. What's the best way to do it? It is easier if you connect with somebody, somebody at a firm who can help kind of refer you in or kind of send a note along with your resume. The on-cycle recruiting is easier. We typically recruit in the fall for jobs that will start next fall. So it's a very long recruiting cycle, which is different from a lot of companies. It actually makes it especially difficult to like forecast demand and like kind of balance like team designs, but that's a whole nother matter. People are coming on campus are coming now. They may also be coming in the spring, but many firms are coming now. We're recruiting on campus now. And I would say, what else can be said about that? Just we are recruiting now for fall positions as well. So if you're a graduating senior, I know that we are recruiting. I'm sure other firms are as well. I would just reach out. You can reach out to me, or if you're interested in our firm, but if you're interested, we're generally also completely fine to reach out to their recruiting departments, because I think many of them are recruiting off cycle this year.
David, what would make a candidate really stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, right now, if you're applying off cycle, I think like a demonstrated interest in healthcare, would be probably the biggest start. I think that you've done your homework, that you're saying, hey, I'm interested in consulting for these specific reasons, and not just because you're coming on campus and recruiting a bunch of people. Like, I've thought about this. I've done related work. If you think about how your experience can fit with our firm, I think every firm wants to know why consulting, why us, and then why you, right? Like why this fit. And I find that like our best candidates are the ones who have a great kind of passion for the work. And healthcare, like it's not like a hard thing to get passionate about usually. Like if you're not into it, it's fine. No one can make you be. But most of our guys, most of our team members who are successful here. They love solving kind of problems in healthcare. They love helping think about how like a growth company or startup can be successful. They think about it all the time. That is fun for them. And so the things that show your initiative, that you're kind of a self-starter, that you have a little bit of entrepreneurial grit. One of the things we like best about Berkeley alums is that they are very independent. They're able to kind of find their own way. They don't need to have their hands held throughout every element of it. And that's a big benefit.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful. Other questions? Okay, so here's another one. How closely do you work with healthcare professionals, if at all? Or is the work more closely linked to legal work and legal professionals? Does a position like this give you any insight into either field?
I can go ahead and start. Okay. I work with mostly, well, I was on Maddie's position at first, so on the revenue and underpayment side. And as a senior leading one of those projects, I was working a lot with like CFOs and more of the financial and C-suite offices at the hospitals. So less so with doctors and clinical professionals. But I do think if you're interested in more of the healthcare and management side, that's also something that you get a glimpse into in our position as well. In my current position now, I work still with some of those upper level hospital management professionals, and then get more of the attorney side now as well. So it definitely is position dependent.
Great. Any additions, Maddie or David?
Nope, makes sense.
So another question came in. What level of interaction with clients and guidance from senior officials within the company can a summer analyst or new analyst expect? So what is onboarding like? What does support look like for new people coming in?
Yeah, so at CloudMed, the way that teams are kind of positioned is that depending on how big the project is, which can range from small, like 2 people to 8 even or more. And essentially you start out as an associate consultant, and then after your first year, you become an experienced consultant. And there's typically like 1 or 2 associates and then 1 or 2 experienced consultants. And then you have a senior as who kind of leads and manages the project. And then above the senior, who you will have most interaction with as an associate and an experienced consultant, you have your manager, who often leads multiple or oversees multiple projects, and whereas the senior just manages 1 hospital system. And then above that is our principal or director, depending on the project, who oversee much more high level interaction with the clients. And so as kind of like a summer analyst, or if you're looking for like an internship position, you would probably get most exposure to the senior on the project, and as well as the manager to some extent. But it's not really until you're an experienced consultant, at least at CloudMed, where you get more client interaction and you start to communicate more outside of our own organization.
Maybe just a little bit about that. I mean, in our firm, our intern is basically assigned a partner who will be their kind of mentor for the summer. So I have this summer I had 2 interns. I have like a call, a touch point every 2 weeks with them throughout their internship, just to check in on them, see how they're progressing, if they have any questions, to answer them directly. In terms of the team design, we tend to have pretty small teams, 2, 3, 4 people, 3 to 4 people would be kind of the average size for a team. And over the summer, we make sure that all of our summer interns are staffed on live engagements with project teams. You will typically not be leading anything, but you will be involved in the room with clients as part of the program. So That's a little bit of how we see it.
I think you may be muted, Jen.
My cat was trying to chime in, so I muted myself. Sorry. So I was asking this, does anyone have any more questions? We have about 15 minutes left.
Yeah, I do actually. Do you have any advice for someone who wants to stand out during the recruitment process, especially as a student on current campus? Is there anything extra that we should do apart from like reaching out to perhaps alumni or anything else?
Good question.
I would say just really refining your cover letter based upon each organization that you're applying to. So just making sure that like you have all the information for each firm and you're tailoring the information that you want to provide to them. So our cover letter will probably look much more different than a cover letter for David's firm or for some other job that you're applying to. So I would put a lot of care into those. And I think that's when getting in touch with people in the organization is really helpful because they can oftentimes tell you what that company is looking for in their cover letter or how to tailor your resume as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think, but to me, those are really table stakes. Like if you have not taken the time to do that, it is very competitive out here. I would definitely, yes, do that. Then you get an interview. Now, you want to stand on the interview, I would certainly try to come with some ideas, right? Come with some questions, show that you've thought through it. Be as prepared, let your preparation show. So if it's one thing to say, hey, I met somebody, I connected somebody on LinkedIn who worked at your company, talk to them. What do they like about their jobs? Are they interested in, they're just super passionate about, revenue cycle management, or they're super passionate about, innovation or whatever the case may be. Great. Good to know. And then you can be like, does that fit for you? That's actually probably even more valuable than preparing for the interview. It's like, do I actually want to work here? Is this what I want to do with my life? Is there some other path for me? Like all these people I talk to, they seem really interested in this. After talking to them, I'm actually not that interested in this, right? Like this actually isn't for me. And as an alum, I'm here telling you, it's probably the most important thing, the hardest thing, and what I'll challenge everybody here to do is to think about if this is actually what you want to do. I love this job for many reasons. I love the problem solving. I love the team orientation. I love the fact that I have, as a partner now, I have more control over my life and what I do, how I do it, who I do it with, when I do it, and recruiting, who do we choose to run our firm in the future than almost any other job that I can think of. And if I don't like, if I see a problem that I think we can solve in my area or field of expertise, if I can find other people who also see value in that, then I will do it. If that appeals to you, great. If it doesn't appeal to you, I would think hard about, like, there's many other paths in life. And as a student, it's a wonderful time to really think that through. And that, like, you can do it in an unbiased way. Most students don't have as many responsibilities. You're kind of free to like think through what you really actually want to do. That's rare. Enjoy that.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would also just hop in quickly and say that I think looking at job descriptions and kind of like the qualifications that they're looking for is really helpful to see like what other skills you can try to gain throughout your years at Berkeley. And like especially if you're like early on at Berkeley and you're just trying to get a feel for what career you would even be interested in, like looking to see what qualifications jobs are looking for in people who are applying, and see if you can kind of tailor your experiences to gain certain skills that you see repeat over and over on job descriptions, just to really make yourself stand out and be able to go in with like a good set of skills. And obviously you might not fill out every single qualification, but just being able to kind of, again, tailor your experiences in college to something that can be pretty applicable in future jobs that you apply for.
Great. Thank you so much.
I think the question I'd like to finish on just give you this opportunity to speak to what is one myth that's common in your line of work, and why is that not true?
I would say having no work-life balance, or like little work-life balance and consulting, I feel like that's a myth. And I would say it's like obviously company and firm dependent. But I think at least Katie and I's company really puts an effort into making sure you, like, especially in this virtual setting, getting to know each other outside if people feel comfortable doing so, or just kind of understanding where people are coming from and giving them the time and space to make sure they're prioritizing their mental health also. So I feel lucky to be part of a company that puts an emphasis on that, especially during this time. So I think that's one myth, at least I see in my company within this line of work.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. I was under the impression when I was looking for consulting jobs that we would be working crazy long hours, which is also not true. And I think that that is also company specific as well. But especially at CloudMed, like Maddie said, we have the ability to work flexible hours if we need to. And yeah, being part of a company that's okay with that and, you know, encourages us to create the hours that we need and take the personal time that we need is really nice.
Cool. And yeah, I mean, maybe one myth. There are many myths. Maybe one myth is I think over time, like, the biggest myth that I see is that, like, that people think that it's like travel. The business is really evolving. So I'm trying to think, like, what are the myths? Because so many myths have been busted over the past year.
Yeah.
Even firms that had heavier travel have revamped their models pretty substantially. So one was, and our firm has never been like that, but other firms that have like 4-day-a-week travel models, like that was just the way it had to be. It had to be there, or else you couldn't do the job. And I think that's clearly turned out not to be the case. I don't think almost any firm will have a 4-day-a-week travel model going forward. People don't want to be there, and people aren't there, right? So, that's probably, like, maybe that's one myth that's clearly been debunked. Other myths, I think that we're, because of the new kind of go forward flexibility in the model, I do think that that a lot of firms will be able to hire people with different backgrounds and make it work better. I think that is another thing that I'm seeing, and we're seeing more emphasis on process and technology to help fill the gaps and keep that cohesiveness that clients expect. So greater use of technology, greater use of kind of, I think these are, new tools which allow kind of more flexible work and collaboration. All of these changes have kind of upended the myth that, like, we need to be together as much as we did. And I feel like for new hires, I still encourage it, but it's not going to be uniform. I think new hires need to be in the office a lot. As you become more experienced, it may be less important. Trying to find the right balance for that is something we spend a lot of time thinking about, because I do believe it's still an apprenticeship. And if you're not seeing people, or if all your interactions with team members are effectively scheduled and not like spontaneous, my feeling is that anybody who's new is just not asking enough questions. That's just not enough time. And so do we have more? I've been telling all people who are new at our firm, if you come to our company, you have to schedule in with your managers 3 touch points a day. I don't care if you don't have anything to talk about, but I'm just trying to lower the hurdle for new hires to ask for help and ask their questions. Because if you're in the office, questions big and small, you're asking the person right across the desk from you, like, much more intentional about that in a remote environment.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Well, gosh, this has been really great. I love the broad perspective. You have given so much insight, answered so many questions. a question came into the chat. I mean, everybody's thanking you for your time. But someone also asked, is there any way we can reach out to you individually after this event? I know you're all on LinkedIn. Would it be okay if anyone wanted to, are you all okay if they just reach out to you through LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hit me up. Yep.
Okay with you too, Katie? Okay, great.
Yeah, of course.
Cool. Well, I want to respect everyone's time. And again, like Alum, I just appreciate you so much jumping in. I know your day is busy, but this is so incredibly helpful and it's really timely. So appreciate your time. David, thank you for calling in. I love to hear that little sweet voice. Gallery there. That was great.
Both, this was the most productive hour of the day. Sorry, I hope it was okay for you guys. I now have 2 children in the backseat. I made 2 stops. Safe, all good. Thank you.
I think that's pretty impressive and definitely shows that work-life flexibility. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to turn.
Take care. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to turn off the recording here. And for anyone who's